In May 2021, we began an adventure. We had a goal of snowkiting 1,500 kilometers at the longitude of Greenland. A journey on the second largest glacier in the world. A place of incredible beauty, harsh weather, and difficult challenges.
Extreme adventures are all about preparations. Team, communication, and risk assessments are all important factors for success.
And the feeling when the helicopter leaves and you're all on your own. It's a feeling of excitement, emptiness, fear, and joy. We were finally ready to start the expedition. Daring to dream big is a mindset. A mindset of action, ambition, and courage. Our next step is an expedition to the South Pole in November and the North Pole in April 2022. If you want to follow us on our journey, check out our website. We're still looking for new partners. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have some amazing opportunities. Join us and dare to dream big.
Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to another live broadcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wasn't that some amazing footage that you just saw there, right? Looking pretty amazing. Well, I'm super excited because today I am going to be joined by a friend, a colleague, a former client, someone who is truly dreaming big. You saw her there in that Dare to Dream Big update, and maybe you've seen her here before, or you've seen her TED Talk. I am talking about Siv Harstad. She is the Norwegian adventurer who is on a global Grand Slam adventure. So here she's looking all corporate. She's now a speaker as well. She came from a business and corporate background, and now she is traveling the world, including climbing the 7 highest peaks. That's the highest peak on each continent. And she's already done 5 out of the 7 highest volcanoes on each continent. And in her mission to dare to dream big, she is going to visit the 2 poles. So this means she's on a mission to become not just the first woman, but the first human to do all of these crazy feats. So I'm happy that Siv will update us on this Dare to Dream Big project. You may have seen I interviewed her earlier this year before Greenland. Pretty epic. So I've got a question for you. You've got dreams. You've got goals. Maybe it's to become a speaker. Maybe it's to leave corporate and start your own business like Siv did, or become a public speaker, get on that red dot on the TED stage. Maybe you want to write a book. Well, I want to know, what's your excuse? Because I know for many people, myself included, I've done this before, we sit in our excuses. Not enough time, got to focus on the kids or family, maybe not enough money, maybe I just don't know how. Well, all of those excuses are going to be thrown out the window because Siv and her collaborator, Håkon, they had some of the same kind of stuff going on, believe it or not. So without further ado, I want to welcome my wonderful guest, my dear friend, Siv Harstad. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Andrea. Wonderful to be here.
Well, it's exciting times. The last time that we went live together, I think it was before Greenland, which was magical. And I'm wearing this Dimla dress with a glacier from Iceland in honor of your glacial adventures. So how was it? I mean, you went ski kiting over 1,000 kilometers, all in ice, like that ice that we saw in that intro video, right? That's where you were dropped off?
Yeah, yeah. And we went actually 1,442, so almost 1,500 kilometers. And for me, who started kiting 1 year ago, that was an amazing achievement, I have to say. I feel like that, yeah. And it was so much stress because we didn't know if we could go. They had closed the country, foreigners couldn't enter. We only got to know like 2 weeks beforehand, and we were standing on our heads for 2 weeks to just make it happen. And then, we were there, and it was like, oh my goodness, it really did happen. We believed in it, and we went for it, and there we were.
Yeah. Well, I think when I got this picture, wait, I've got both the picture and the movie up. So yeah, this is what you saw in Greenland, right?
Yeah, this is actually just outside our hotel. It was the ice fjord you can see in the background of this picture as well. It's a UNESCO place, actually, and I didn't know before we started to do research on Greenland, and it's amazing. You can see the icebergs, they're floating by, and some of them get stranded because they're so huge. And actually, one of the icebergs in that video, they told us could actually give fresh water to US for 1 year.
Oh my
That's
God.
how big they are.
That's epic.
Yeah. And what we see above surface is just a tiny bit, most of it's underneath. So they're massive.
So I said in the intro that you're on a deluxe version of the Global Grand Slam Adventurers. So like some people will do the Grand Slam and climb the 7 highest peaks, but you've added the 7 volcanoes, and you've done 5 out of 7, and the 2 poles. So why did you go to Greenland? Because that doesn't fit in the whole scheme, right? Like, why did you go there?
Because me and Håkon, who I've joined forces with over the past year, since we were both on our different adventures doing our missions. And then when everything stopped in 2020, we realized, if we join forces, work together, use our different strengths, we're going to be so much stronger, and it's also going to be much more fun because you have somebody to share the experience with and plan together with and all of that. So we started the Dare to Dream Brig project, and basically when we want to go to the South Pole, we're not allowed to go there if we cannot document polar experience. So even though we climbed Everest and we've done all the things we've done, that wasn't like good enough. And our previous plan was to go to the North Pole, and that would be, of course, polar experience. But then things happened again this year. They didn't. It wasn't possible to go there basically because of travel restrictions that we've had all over the world, and then they said, well, come back to the North Pole next year. So to be able to go to Antarctica this November, we needed to get that polar experience, and then Greenland is a good place to go. So we were hoping that we could do it in May. We had a backup plan of doing it in August, if not. But we were grateful that we could do it in May, because then we've had some time in between now, and November is coming up shortly. So time is flying. Yeah.
It's pretty epic to me, because knowing that you just a year ago had not even had kiting experience,
Yeah.
to think that, oh yes, I'm now going to go to Greenland and be dropped off and have no other way to get, well, I guess you could have skied just without the kite, but you needed that wind. So what was it like to go from a novice to expert in just a year?
Well, I put in a lot of effort, I have to say that, because I knew my friend Håkon. He's a good kiter. He's done it for a long time, and I didn't want to be the drag, that couldn't do it. So last year, early March, I bought a kite. I was going to go on a course. Then they closed down all our country and all the other countries. So the course was, of course, canceled, and I was stuck in Oslo, and there's no mountains. It wasn't much snow around here in March and April. So I ended up training on my own, found a flat area to learn to like fly the kite. And then as soon as they opened after Easter and I could go to the mountains, I was like straight up there, had an amazing teacher that he taught me how to do it. And had a couple of days together with him, and then practiced on my own and practiced on my own. And again, this year in the wintertime, out there, and I have to admit, not every day of those days was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go. I was feeling like, oh, yeah, but I have to do it, And then this year when we came to Greenland, and I felt like I was in control, and we have GPS that could tell us that the day we had the fastest kiting was like 42 kilometers, which is quite fast, especially when you're skiing with a sled behind. So I felt like, yeah, that was such a good feeling to feel like, yeah, I've done it,
Well, you've told
And
me.
also the thing is that we did, those 1,442 kilometers in only 15 days. We were told on forehand, expect to use 2-3 weeks, bring food for 23 days. And then we were like, done it in 15. So even that was amazing for us,
Yeah, I think that's incredible, especially because, as you said, you're doing this in the middle of a pandemic when certain countries were closed. You didn't have all the guarantees that you were going to get in. And, with these expeditions, what you've shared with me before is how costly they are. So how much does an expedition cost, say, to go to Mount Everest? Because you've been there twice. You've summited it once, but you were there during the earthquake in 2015. So how much does that cost?
Well, normally you pay somewhere between $40,000 and $65,000, depending on the company you go with.
That's a
And then you
lot.
can have a higher price if you want to have like special things. But yeah, that's the normal price. And then your gear is in addition to that, of course.
And so what is this expedition that you have coming up? What does that look like cost-wise?
A little bit about $200,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Yeah, and so I mean, it begs the question. You've heard me ask this before, but why? Like, what motivated you? Like for most people, just going to Mount Everest would be enough. And you went to Everest after experiencing burnout. So like, why do you keep doing it? What's the reason?
Well, sometimes, it's hard to answer the question, but I really like the challenge, to challenge myself to do it and to like conquer even fears and be able to reach my goal. That's in general why I do it, and I love to be in nature and doing sports, so that helps as well, of course. But I don't like to freeze, so. But anyway, I can handle it. I've learned a lot of tricks over the years to handle that.
Yeah, well,
And now I think I also have to say, for the mission that I do, I really, really want it to be a woman who's the first person, because it's always a man, and I feel like there's an opportunity for me to do this for all the amazing women out there, and to take down this for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I think this whole idea of just doing things because you love the challenge, you love feeling your own sense of efficacy and achievement and accomplishment is amazing. And so I do think you are a model for men and certainly for women, that we shouldn't be put into a little box to think that you can't do something, especially even if you've never heard of someone doing it before or you've never done it before, because I mean, it's not like you're a teenager to just pick up ski kiting, you know, that's kind of a big deal. So what about you now as a speaker? Like, we have been working together, but before you even came into my world, you had already done the TED Talk, and now you're doing virtual speaking gigs, you're speaking in person. How has that transition been for you?
Well, of course, coming from corporate, I've already, used to addressing management team and all of that. But what I love to do with these talks and keynotes I do is to share my stories from the expeditions and from life and even the challenges I've faced, and to share some amazing pictures. You've seen some of them, and also to connect, because there's so many parallels from what we're doing in expeditions to corporate and to what people do in their work life. So that's one of the things that I really love, and also that I get a really good feedback on, is that my business background coming into corporate and to sharing and to connecting the dots, you could say, between a good metaphor from an expedition and into corporate life.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that, because I think all of the things that you've told me, including the things that have kind of gone wrong on an expedition, are exactly parallel to things that go on in the corporate world. So talk to me a bit about that. Like, for example, communication is essential for your teams, and trust. Like, you have a whole a keynote about these essential elements. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and if you're in a team and you are talking together, it's so important that even people feel that they can honestly share or come with, if they don't agree, because just as an example, me and Håkon, we had a practice trip this year in February, and we went out ski kiting, and we had different opinions on the direction to take at one point, and at the end of the day, I didn't want to discuss it. He didn't want to ask why I didn't agree, and we ended up going in a direction that was not where we should have been. And it gave us an amazing lesson, that you have to voice if you don't agree, and B, you should be curious why somebody disagrees, because it could be an important point there. And if you're in a project at work, that could also be the thing, it happens. And it's, not so smart to say, oh, I thought about it, I didn't say,
Yeah, well, not when you're out on the ice somewhere and you could be going in the complete wrong direction. And especially for you on these expeditions, I mean, it's the same in business. We have resources we have to look after, right? There's money, there's time, there's deliverables in business. But you, out on the ice, you have limited food because you had to carry stuff. It's not like, especially in Greenland, if you ran out of rations, like, I understand one of the sleds kind of went down a crevasse. If you had lost your food or whatever, like, maybe I guess you could call on the native Inuits there to come back and rescue you, but that's not ideal.
No, and I don't think that could happen, actually. The probably best guess we would have been a helicopter to pick us up, but not everywhere is easy to get that happening. And another thing is that it's costing you a fortune. So no, thank you. You want to avoid that. Sure.
Yeah, and the other thing that you've told me about your expeditions is the sense of teamwork. And one of the things that I didn't mention is that Håkon is not just an adventurer, he's considered a jazz athlete. And he takes his saxophone and brings it into nature, playing in all of these amazing, beautiful places. And that's what he's doing with you on this Dare to Dream Big project. Like, why did you think that adding music to your expedition was going to be a cool idea?
Oh, it's amazing. And he's such a fantastic musician. So I really have to share that. And the work he's doing is really, really good. So he has mission and to write music, to actually write like a concert for 70 people playing, put it up in the Norway Opera House with images from all these amazing places he's been, and now he's going to do the same in the North and South Pole, and it is really wonderful. And it's also so cool for us to have this mix of me having the business background and he's coming from art and music, and it's bringing two very different sides together, but it's in a beautiful way. So I really love it how we complement each other, basically.
Yeah, it's super cool for me to see the clips and to see some of the behind the scenes stuff. So for those of you that are curious, you can actually follow Håkon and Siv in their adventures. It's dreambig.red. I'm going to put up your website. And the thing that's cool about that is that I heard that you're now going to open up not just having corporate sponsors, but the general public can donate, we can support you, we can follow along. And I love the idea of you and Håkon doing presentations, either for corporations or public speaking, where you could combine the imagery, the amazing nature that you've traveled to, along with the music and your speeches. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and one of the amazing things we're gonna experience is that there's gonna be a total solar eclipse when we're in Antarctica. So it's gonna be like, yeah.
Oh my God, this is epic.
Yeah, that is epic because that doesn't happen every 10 years even. So that is so cool.
Oh, absolutely. So everyone, you've got to support Siv and Håkon on this mission. It's quite a costly one. So if you go to dreambig.red, you'll find a way to donate and support them. And anything is going to be useful. And you get to have the behind the scenes videos and updates along the expedition.
Yeah.
So you're going to the South Pole this year and then the North Pole next spring.
That's the plan.
What's different about the poles?
Oh, big difference because South Pole is Antarctica continent. It's bigger than all of US and it's so vast, and I have one word for it, and that is pristine. It's so beautiful and so clean and all of that, and so many mountains all over that you most people wouldn't think that. And even the South Pole is approximately 3,000 meters high. So it's it's a lot of ice there.
Yeah. And that's compared to what's the altitude of the North Pole then?
There's no altitude there because the North Pole don't have land underneath. It's just on the ocean.
Okay, just ice and ocean, and yeah.
Yeah, so basically on the North Pole there is the ice that freezes over during the winter, and hopefully it's going to be a lot of that when we go there, because you can have these open, parts where there is not so much ice, etc. So we have to be really careful. It could be in some areas. So that's maybe one of the major differences. And also on the North Pole, you can meet a polar bear. They don't exist in the South, so thankfully.
So what about the 5 volcanoes that you've already done, and what are the last 2 on your list?
The last 2 is Mount Sidley in Antarctica that I also plan to do when I go there this winter. And then it's in Papua New Guinea. So it's called Mount Gillowy. So I should have been there in August last year, but that didn't really happen. So we will see when it's possible to go again.
Yeah. And are either of those 2 volcanoes active?
No, not like active. In volcano world is considered maybe active even if it's hundreds of years since it was last time active, but no, they're not considered.
Okay, so you'll be able to check those 2 off. I love it. So one of the things that you shared with me is that being on an expedition means you have to be flexible and adaptable. And we all talk about resilience, but you live it. Like coming down Everest blind, like you needed to be adaptable. But talk to me about how you translate that for teams, especially when you're doing like corporate wellness retreats and events to help teams become more adaptable and become more flexible and have better communication.
So I love building strong teams, and we do some activities to like practice it a little bit, because some people are a little bit like they need to know when lunch is, because if not they can't concentrate before. It's quite interesting when you bring people along on trips and stuff. They need to have like predictability, but I think everybody have experienced that life is not so predictable over the past 1.5 year, and things that we took for granted are suddenly not possible and all of that. And yeah, I think my background as a consultant, I've been used to like coming in, finding out what's on the table, how can I use my skills, how can I use my experiences, and how can I just adapt to the situation. And that's a bit what we talk about, and I try to teach people how to live in the moment, basically, and not worry too much about tomorrow, because we basically can't do much about tomorrow until it comes.
Yeah, will you share with the audience that story about what happened on Everest? Like you had that same challenge. It's like you did all of the training, all of the planning, raised the money, and then there was an earthquake.
Yeah.
And tell me about how you guys made the best of the situation.
Yeah, basically we've planned to have an amazing expedition. We'd prepared for 2 years, and like in a few seconds, everything changed when we had the earthquake. And it took us a little while until we actually understood the severity of all of that. But when we did, we decided to stay put very close to base camp in a small village where it's basically safe, and just to regroup and find out how to handle the situation. And then we just went into base camp, picked up some of our food that we sent down. That's practically a Norwegian Christmas meal that we had there. We asked the guys if we could borrow the kitchen and prepare that Christmas meal, because we decided and agreed within the team that we're going to make every day as good as possible. And then we had this amazing Christmas deal we shared with the locals so they can taste the Norwegian pinnekjøtt for the Norwegians, which is basically some dried lamb that's been, yeah. So we had an amazing experience, even though we were in midst of chaos and horrible things happening around us. So I think it's a good quality if you try to make the best out of a difficult situation. That's the only thing we can do.
Yeah. And I love how that video that we played, we hear Håkon saying that dare to dream big is a mindset. And I think everything that you're talking about is mindset. Like we can get frustrated because COVID, the country restrictions, you couldn't fly, maybe it was a boat. It's like all these things come up, but it really comes down to our mindset in the moment, right?
It really is, and we can decide how we want to feel and what we want to focus on, because what you focus on, that's what you're going to get more of. So if you focus on that it's difficult and you're pissed off or whatever you're focusing on, that's going to kind of come to you more and more. And if you focus on, for even not being able to travel, but maybe you can go in your own country, maybe you can go in your own village. What can you do to make a beautiful day and to have a fantastic time with the people that you can be with, instead of complaining about the people you can't see,
Yeah.
And that will make the whole big difference for how you feel and how things are.
So you've done these expeditions with limited training, limited time, limited funding. what would you say to the people who have those excuses? People who want to do like you, like they want to leave corporate and go out on their own, or they want to become a speaker. What would you say to them?
Do it. Because the only one holding you back is you. And the things you think is the reasons why you can't do it is just an excuse. I didn't have sponsors. I didn't have, a backup plan for leaving corporate. I just did it. And yeah, maybe you can make like a transition way of leaving your job, whatever, if that's one you want to do. Or if you want to become a speaker, start training how to become one. There's a lot of opportunities to learn, and whatever you want to do, you can learn it. Find somebody who knows and learn from them.
Like me, perhaps?
Andrea, friend, is an amazing teacher, for
Well,
sure.
I'm very excited that we're going to work together on perhaps your next TED Talk in the Speaker Circle, which starts next weekend. So if anyone out there would like to join the Speaker Circle Authentic Speaker Training, you can visit my website, makeyourmarkglobal.com. And yeah, it's going to be exciting because over 12 weeks, we'll be meeting virtually to work on your talk, to get some feedback from people around the world. And of course, there's private sessions with me and an online video training with all my worksheets and all of my nerdy neuroscience of how you can really connect from the heart and become a powerful speaker. So I'm excited that we're going to work with you on your next one, because every time I see you present, like, it gets better, it gets deeper, it gets more exciting, and I can feel you, like, really your confidence as a speaker.
Yeah, and I've learned so much from you and how to approach this in a good way. So I'm excited as well to keep developing,
Yeah.
basically.
And so how was it for you to get hired to speak? I mean, you got paid to do some speaking virtually while the pandemic was going on. I know you're used to being in front of people and doing workshops. How was it to do keynotes and things online?
Oh, very different, because you're used to having that interaction and seeing the response, etc. And suddenly you're like, yeah, in front of the camera, speaking to yourself. So quite different, I have to say. But with practice, I feel that it's gone really well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it seems like it is, because you keep getting invited back and invited to give more talks for these big companies and corporations and all of that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a wonderful catch-up. I'm very, very happy that things are going in the right direction for your career and for this expedition. I wish you and Håkon the best. I invite people to visit the website, dreambig.red, so you can support them on this big mission. And dare to dream big. Like, whatever your goal is, don't use any of the excuses of the moment, because Siv has proven that those excuses can be blown out the door.
They can. So dare to dream big, guys. And thank you, Andrea, for having me.
Always a pleasure, always an inspiration. And I have to say that even I have to check my mindset, like, okay, am I making excuses about things? Like, so I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, my friends. Well, thank you for tuning in. Until we meet again, please do remember, you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love, everyone. Bye.
Bye.